Off the coast of Nagasaki, a small island rises from the East China Sea like the hull of a sunken warship. Its silhouette is jagged, walled, and silent. Locals call it Gunkanjima, the battleship island. Its official name is Hashima. Today it is a ruin. Concrete towers crumble under salt wind, and seabirds nest in shattered apartments. Tourists arrive by ferry to photograph its decay. But beneath the picturesque silence lies a darker history, buried under coal dust and seawater. Hashima was once the most densely populated place on Earth. At its peak in 1959, more than 5,000 people lived on a slab of rock barely 16 acres in size. They came for coal, and for some they did not come by choice. The story begins in 1810, when coal was first discovered on the island. By 1890, the Mitsubishi Company had purchased Hashima outright. The corporation saw in its black seams a foundation for Japan's industrial future. Within years, shafts plunged hundreds of meters beneath the seabed. To house the workers, Mitsubishi raised Japan's first large concrete apartment blocks in 1916. Seawalls were built to hold back the typhoons. Schools, shops, a hospital, and even a cinema crowded the tiny rock. From a distance, Hashima resembled a fortress floating on the waves. For decades, the mine fed Japan's steel mills and warships. Coal from Hashima powered the Yawata steelworks and the engines of empire. As the nation marched toward war in the 1930s, the demand for fuel grew insatiable. And so did the demand for labor. By the late 1930s, Japan had colonized Korea for nearly 3 decades. With Japanese men conscripted into the military, the empire turned to its colonies for workers. Korean laborers were recruited, then conscripted, then forcibly mobilized. Many were sent to the mines of Kyushu and to Hashima. Historians estimate that some 500 to 800 Korean men were brought to Hashima between 1939 and 1945. Later, Chinese prisoners of war joined them. They were housed in the oldest, dampest quarters at the island's edge, where seawater seeped through the walls. Survivors would later describe the island by a different name. They called it Hell Island. The shafts ran more than a kilometer beneath the ocean floor. Temperatures reached 45 degrees Celsius. The air was thick with coal dust, methane, and the constant threat of collapse. A Korean survivor named Seo Young-woo, brought to Hashima as a teenager, recalled 12-hour shifts in tunnels so cramped he could not stand upright. Workers crawled through water on their hands and knees. Cave-ins were frequent. Gas explosions killed without warning. Escape was nearly impossible. The island lay 15 kilometers from the mainland, surrounded by powerful currents. Some men tried anyway, leaping from the sea wall at night. Records suggest dozens drowned in the attempt. Those caught were beaten and returned to the shafts. Food was scarce and rations thin. Beriberi, malnutrition, and tuberculosis spread through the dormitories. According to documents later uncovered by South Korean researchers, at least 122 Korean laborers died on Hashima between 1925 and 1945. The causes ranged from accidents to suffocation to suicide. Above the mines, the island's Japanese residents lived a different life. Children attended school in concrete classrooms. Families gathered on rooftop gardens, the only green space on the rock. For them, Hashima was a town. For the conscripted, it was a prison built into the sea. When the war ended in August 1945, the survivors were freed. Many returned to a career now divided. Some stayed in Japan, unable to afford passage home. Their testimonies, recorded decades later, would form the backbone of a long and painful reckoning. Hashima itself continued to produce coal for another quarter-century. But as Japan shifted from coal to petroleum, the mine's value collapsed. In January 1974, Mitsubishi closed the operation. Within 3 months, every resident had left. The island fell silent. For 35 years, Hashima was sealed off, slowly devoured by the sea. Then in 2009, it reopened as a tourist site. Visitors marveled at its post-apocalyptic beauty. Hollywood came calling, and the island appeared as a villain's lair in a James Bond film. In 2015, Japan nominated Hashima for inscription on the UNESCO World Heritage List, celebrating it as a monument to the Meiji Industrial Revolution. South Korea objected fiercely. A diplomatic battle erupted over what the island truly represented: progress or persecution. Japan ultimately agreed to acknowledge that Koreans had been forced to work at the site under harsh conditions. The promise was made before the UNESCO committee in July 2015. But when an information center finally opened in Tokyo in 2020, critics said it downplayed the suffering. UNESCO itself expressed regret. The survivors are now nearly all gone. Their voices remain in archives, in memorials, in court testimonies that sought compensation never fully granted. The concrete ruins of Hashima still stand, weathered by typhoons, indifferent to the arguments above them. The coal beneath the waves keeps its silence. Hashima is a place of two memories. One celebrates the engineers and the families who built a city on a rock. The other remembers the men who were dragged there, who dug in the dark, and who never came home. Both are true. The sea, as always, holds them both.